Well, I'm going to back up here a little bit. We've got to talk about 200 Motels. I mean, what a flick. And you were wonderful in it, I must say. And is this when you first met Ringo and Keith Moon, or had you known them before?
Well, we had known Keith. Keith was a huge California music fan, and when the Who came to America, we saw the Who perform at the Fox Theater in New York City and Brooklyn. This was their very first tour. They came over and played the Fox Theater, and Howard and I had gone to the Fox Theater to witness this first trip in by the Who, and also on that show was the Cream. Closing act was Wilson Pickett, I think, and Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. But the Who, during that trip is where we met Keith. He was a big fan of the Turtles, Beach Boys, anything that had harmonies and came out of California. He was just hugely involved in, and that would really lay a foundation of friendship for us with Keith that when he was brought in to do 200 Motels had already been established. And then we went on and remained friends with Keith up until the time of his death. In fact, Howard and I did all of the singing on Keith's album, Two Sides of the Moon, when he chose to eventually do a solo record. The singers that would be a part of that, almost 18-month project, because that record was recorded and with one producer, and then the record company threw it out and said that they didn't like the record and wanted Keith to do it again. They brought in another production team, and we were about the only parts of the production that stayed from beginning to end with both producers. And the Two Sides of the Moon features Howard and I singing on about 80% of the record is us, with Keith, of course, trying to help him sing. And we stayed friends with Keith through, as I say, his death. So,
what about Ringo? Tell me about that. Has to be an experience. Anybody that meets a Beatle, that's you got to share that.
We had met Ringo and the Beatles in 1967 when the Turtles went to England on our first trip to perform in England. The Beatles were one of the groups that came out to see the Turtles perform. So, we had met them in a more, non-business way. We were performing, actually we had done about 3 weeks in England, and we had come into England to perform for the BBC and to do Top of the Pops and the Grey Whistle Test, mainly television and radio, but while we were there, we performed at some of the major spots that were known, Blazes, Speakeasy. We had gone into Ireland and into the British Isles. We had gone into the northern part of England and played in a few theaters. But the main reason we had come in was to really energize ourselves within the musical community of doing press and sort of advertising ourselves to the world. And we were coming over hot on the success of Happy Together and just on the verge of releasing what would become our biggest international record, She'd Rather Be With Me. And so we had met the Beatles at that period of time and had met Ringo. So by the time we worked with Ringo on 200 Motels, we had had a brief flirtation of meeting at that time. So working with Ringo during that process was a great process because we had this mutual admiration. He was again a big fan of the music of the Turtles, and so that we always were fortunate that the people that we sang with had this foundation of the Turtles' history as a part of their musical lives. And so It really wasn't. I mean, obviously, working with him it was great. I mean, Ringo was a consummate professional, and of all the Beatles, one of the members who was able to, again change and manipulate himself through film and radio, and we had also interviewed Ringo in our radio show. We had a radio show in the early 70s in Los Angeles, and Ringo had done our radio show. So we had contact with him before and previous to 200 Motels.
Okay. Well, let me go on here a little bit more here, and then I'm going to let you go. I can't let you go until we address a couple of things here. You've got to touch on this. I'm a big fan also of T-Rex. A lot of people don't realize that you guys are singing in the background there, right?
Yes. Howard and I became friends with Mark around 1972, 73, when Flo and Eddie began touring after our tenure with Frank. We became knowledgeable of Mark through his early recordings as Tyrannosaurus Rex. We became big fans of those early records, Prophets, Seers, Sages. We had bought them and really got to know the music, and in fact, Tyrannosaurus Rex became an opening act for Flo and Eddie. In 72, Mark came to America and performed several shows in the area in Detroit. They were also very counterculture and hip musical community, and so Mark was known through the Ann Arbor and Detroit area. When we played the Grandy Ballroom, we did a 2-night stint at the Grandy Ballroom as Flo and Eddie. Our opening act was Tyrannosaurus Rex, and what a joy! I mean, for Howard and I to be able to work with Mark at that time, because I mean, we knew his music, and we were very big fans of the music. So this was really great. Mark at that time traveled just by himself, and Steve Took on hand drums. So basically, as an opening act for us, coming out of the Turtles, coming out of Zappa, the audience unfortunately didn't know his music as well as we did, and so Mark was not received very well, but he still, sat on a carpet with an acoustic guitar and a hand drummer and played his music, and we became really close friends. And in fact, during that 3-day period, almost nightly, we would just, hang out, smoke pot. He'd sing, and we'd listen, and we just hung out with him and his then wife, June Child, and at that point in time, he basically had said to us, if we ever come, to America, into England, to look him up. And so we went to England, and we became connected in England, and he was in the process of working on an album at that time called T-Rex, which was his new name for Tyrannosaurus Rex, and his new sound, which really was, he was moving to an electrified sound, and we worked on a couple of songs with him, which included a record called Hot Love. Hot Love was released in England and worldwide became an enormously successful record for T-Rex. Hot Love was his first platinum record all through the world, everywhere except the United States. We worked on that at Trident in England and sang on that there. The producer on that record and engineer on that record, the engineer was a fellow by the name of Roy Thomas Baker. The producer was Tony Visconti. They got in touch with us after Hot Love, and they wanted to perpetuate that sound farther with Mark to the next Level, which was a new album he was working on. And he had done the recording in England, and they set up Mark and the band came to America they were short 2 or 3 songs, and that's why Mark brought the band. At Elektra Recorders, we did all of the backgrounds on what would become an album called Electric Warrior. And during that session, Mark wrote a song in the United States that really at the time he had no words for. It was really just this beat, this sound, but he knew what he wanted the choruses to do. So what we did is we sang all of the choruses, and he made up the words to Bang a Gong right in the studio. And we did that at Elektra Records here in Los Angeles and recorded Bang a Gong here. They took Bang a Gong and the Electric Warrior album back to England, where Tony Visconti did all of the orchestra arrangements, added all of the horns and strings, and Electric Warrior was released with Mark and Howard as part of the band T-Rex, and we were listed right in the band credits. We were not, special musicians or thank yous. It was just listed right along with Steve Curry and Mickey Finn. Backing vocals was Mark Volman and Howard Kalin, and it wasn't even given us credit as Flo and Eddie. Mark just considered us at that time part of T-Rex, and in fact, when we received our awards from Mark on those records, it was always Mark Volman of T-Rex. I know how Mark felt about us being in the organization, and that carried on to the next record, which we did, Jeepster, the album Jeepster, which was the follow-up. So we worked with Mark actually again on a record called Futuristic Dragon. We worked with Mark on Pieces of Slider. We worked with Mark from the beginning till the end of his life as well, singing on just almost every record. I think there was a couple that we were unable to be a part of or were not chosen to be a part of because things in Mark's life changed too. I mean, June and Mark divorced, and Mark remarried Gloria Jones, and Gloria was a singer, and Mark really wanted to get Gloria involved in his music, and so we worked with Gloria and Mark on Futuristic Dragon, and then we started working on Born to Boogie, and more that changed.
What are the Turtles doing now?
Well, the Turtles continue as a touring business, first and foremost, because our touring business is very successful, and thankfully to the American public and the American disc jockeys, the name The Turtles is still a very popular part of music history, and there is a lot of places in the United States and worldwide that we continue to tour on a yearly basis. We do about 60 shows a year, and that is basically the center of the Turtles' life. We also have a brand new greatest hits in the formation right now, and will find the light of day in 2004. The greatest hits of the Turtles has not been available now for several years, so it will be put back together and released on a new label distributed through CBS Records. Shout International, I believe, will be the name of the company, and we are also working on a visual history, full-color history of photos, ticket stubs, posters, album covers, and dialogue, which will lead the viewer from 1962 to 1970 in a visual history of the Turtles, more of a photo autobiography with words. Also, we are putting out and repackaging for within the next 18 months a new version of our visual history in a DVD form. We had a DVD out for a short period of time with Rhino and a video, and we are going to repackage that with more elements and more surprises and make it a much more complete visual presentation as a VO and DVD for the fans in this next, I would say, year to 18 months to try to get that redone as we accumulate some more visuals for that. Howard and I both have, individual things that we do. Howard has finished recording a solo record that I believe he's attempting to get into the marketplace and perhaps will release on his own. He also constructed a motion picture for Rhino Films on a period of history of the Turtles and a personal part of Howard's event in the Turtles, a movie called My Dinner with Jimmy, which I don't know really what's happening with it, but it won Howard a screenplay writing award at one of the film festivals in Wyoming or something, one of those, like Sundance. They have another one for independent films that goes along with the Sundance. And personally, for me, I'm involved with some songwriters, publishing business I have, and I also I am a full-time professor at 2 universities. I teach about 200 students a year. I have 4 full-time classes at 2 universities. I teach in the Los Angeles school system for Los Angeles Valley College in a commercial music program, and I also teach at Loyola Marymount University. I've been there for 7 years, teaching their film and television school, and I can be reached through Loyola Marymount. I do consulting for the music business for young writers and for young musicians. I have a consulting business that helps them iron out negotiating and problems they might be having with contracts and so forth. So I do a lot of contract consulting for young record company people and so forth, and keeps both of us very busy in our off touring time.
It does sound like it. Well, you've had a very, you started at such a young age, and you had a very long, exciting career, and it's not over yet by any means. It sounds to me like you're actually just getting started in some aspects of it all. I want to thank you so much, Mark, for taking time out today to share this information with us. You've really, really, really been wonderful. And
first of all, let me say thank you. It was enjoyable, and I hope we'll create enough of a furor in the future that people will insist that we do it again. I enjoyed speaking with you, and I wish you all the best and all of the people listening.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.